Hey y'all, I'm Jerica Richey and welcome back for another video. So today we are continuing with the little mini series I've got going where I am breaking down each of the 5 phases of my healing method, my roadmap to recovery that I use with my coaching clients as well as in my coaching program. So for those of you that don't know, or maybe this is your first video seeing me, I am a betrayal trauma coach and I help women who are struggling psychologically and emotionally, navigating life after discovering the infidelity of a partner or after being cheated on. So I help them to restore their sense of self-worth, restore confidence, learn to trust again, get rid of negative cycles of self-sabotage as well as bad toxic relationship patterns, and really just get into a mental and emotional space that gets you ready to call in love into your life again. So, in today's video, we are on phase 3 of the 5 phases of healing, and phase 3 is the acceptance phase. Definitely recommend watching the first 2 phases first so that you have context. So, that's phase 1, which is recognition, and then phase 2, which is processing. Okay, definitely put that on the screen so I can remind myself to tell you all to do that. And I will probably have those linked either at the end of the video or somewhere in the description box. Either way, I recommend watch those first and then you can come back to this one. So with the acceptance phase is really a turning point in my coaching process with my clients and in my programs because it really requires a lot of deep emotional and mental, I'm talking penetrative, transformative inner work. Okay. As you can see on the screen, I put critical inner work. Okay. There's a lot of healing work that we do when we get to phase 3. And a part of that is understanding that, understanding is a bridge to acceptance. The second thing we'll focus on in today's video associated with the acceptance phase is the evidence of the true impact that the betrayal has had on you. What I have found with my coaching clients is by the time we get to phase 3, the acceptance phase, we're really able to see the symptoms, the consequences, the evidence of how you really were impacted by the betrayal. And this is different from the recognition and the processing phase. With this right here, I noticed that women, how they're showing up to life as a result of what they've been through. That's what I mean when I say the true impact. So it's really where I'm able to see where she will go in either two of these very extremely different directions. And we'll break that down as we go through the slides here. So let's go ahead and just start with the first one. Critical inner work, understanding is the bridge to acceptance. So, y'all know how I feel about the etymology. If you watch the other 2 videos, I've already broken down that I love using etymology to better understand words and to really give us a clear understanding of what it is that we are doing, okay? What we are talking about when we are using certain terms and vocabulary. So, when I say understanding is the bridge to acceptance, let's look at understanding, right? Understanding means to comprehend, to grasp the idea of. It also means beneath. And I find that very interesting because you think under, you literally hear the word under in the word understand. So when I think under, right, like if you're under something, right, here's the something, here's the under area. And then stand, right? So you're not just under, you understand, right? So it's like taking a stance on something. So to me, just the way that I've studied other words through etymology, it sounds like to me that when you understand something, you sort of surrender to it. It's the fact that you are now informed, you are now enlightened and made aware or conscious of something, that you can sort of lean into it or you can relax into it. And that brings me to the second word that I want to look at for the etymology, which is accept, because as I stated, understanding is the bridge to acceptance. So when we look at the etymology of accept, it says to take what is offered, to admit, or to agree to, right? So when we accept the idea of something, or when we accept something from a physical standpoint, it's literally us taking in what has been offered to us. We are admitting to it. We are in agreement to it. So again, it goes back to sort of having informed consent, right? So when you have an understanding of something, you have like informed consent. Therefore, you're willing to surrender, you're willing to accept, to admit, to agree with whatever is going on here. So, how does this tie into a healing journey? Well, if understanding is the bridge to acceptance, then by getting you to a place where you are completely informed of what you've been going through, how you got to where you are, then you can accept where you are. And once you've accepted where you are, that's where your healing journey really and truly does begin. Because it's very hard to accept something when we don't understand the why behind it, and we can try to convince ourselves that it doesn't matter. But in my experience and experience with coaching my clients, it does. Because when you don't have the acceptance, you can easily, what's the word I'm looking for? Um, I I can't think of the word that I'm looking for, but essentially what I'm trying to say is if we skip over the acceptance, you may sort of temporarily agree to a thing, right? It's like if you can't remember why you're doing what you're doing, it's going to be very hard to stay the course. It's going to be very hard to be committed to something because you don't have a foundational reasoning supporting why you're doing what you're doing. And so when we get to phase 3 of acceptance in my coaching program, we really focus on making sure that the client can fully understand how she got to where she is. And that's where that critical work I was telling you about comes in at. Okay. So when I say critical work, I'm talking shadow work, really deep emotional inner child work. We work on looking at any limiting, self sabotaging beliefs that you may have. And the reason why we do that, y'all, is because these are the things that contribute to and influence how you currently, as an adult, show up in the world. It speaks to and it gives context to why you've tolerated the things that you have, why your self esteem is where it is, what you believe about your worth and your value. Does that make sense? So, a lot of times we got to figure out where you've been to understand how you got to where you are. And then we need to understand where you are so that we can then determine the best path and the best direction to get you to where you're going, which is getting you to the results that you want to see, getting to trust again, building your self confidence again, restoring your sense of self worth and your self esteem, being ready to accept and attract loving, healthy relationships, right? So that's why I have the "you are here" symbol on the screen. And then I've also got this tree with the roots because I really wanted to show a visual that whatever is planted is what grows, y'all. And so our adulthoods are simply the manifestation or the fruit, the evidence of our childhoods and our upbringings. Okay. So let me give you this example. If you've ever like been on the phone with a friend and you're trying to give them directions on how to get to you or how to get to some sort of location, right? Well, it's going to be very hard for you to do that if they don't first tell you where they are. And that's the first thing that we do. We ask them, okay, well, where are you? What's around you, right? Because you have to have an understanding. There has to be an acceptance of where you are so that you can get to where you're going. But if you don't have an understanding of your starting point, how can someone direct you? So, in the sense of my coaching program, if I'm going to be able to coach you and to really guide you to get where you really want to be emotionally and mentally, first, I need a full understanding of where you're at. And so do you. That way, I know which way to guide you, and you will be more committed to your journey because you have been informed, and there's this informed consent through comprehension and understanding, which gives you a sense of, or the it gives you the space to be comfortable enough to surrender to the coaching process. Okay. But when there's no understanding, you're not going to be comfortable. So I hope that makes sense. I wasn't expecting to break that down or go over that for the first, 8 minutes of the video, but I really just wanted to make sure that I made that very, very, very okay. So next we have evidence of the true impact, the two extremes. Okay. So when I touched on this earlier, what I noticed with my coaching clients is after they have been betrayed, after they've experienced this infidelity, you've been cheated on, you may have been cheated on more than once, there may have been gaslighting, there may have been manipulation and lies, and all of these things that's been a part of the aftermath of this experience. I notice my clients go one or two ways, okay? And these are the two extremes that I mentioned. They either get super porous, okay, and that's why I've got the Swiss cheese on the screen, right? It has the holes in it, right? Because there's really a huge lack of boundaries here. But they either get really porous, meaning they give up aspects of themselves that, well, in both cases, for the porous and the other one is rigid. Let me go ahead and throw that out there. The client gives up aspects of themselves that they believe contributed to why they were cheated on, why the infidelity took place, why their partner chose to be with somebody else over them, right? And in giving up those aspects of the self, that can look two different ways. Some of us give up our having our guard up. We give up our protection and we become people pleasers. We're willing to do anything we can to call in love, to receive love, because we think that maybe we were too rigid, maybe we were too protective, maybe we weren't showing enough vulnerability, maybe we weren't soft enough or feminine enough in the relationship. And as a result, our partner went and chose to be with somebody else. So there's that side. But then I have some clients that go on the other side of that spectrum where they're more rigid. So the aspects of themselves that they give up is the softness. They probably felt like, you know what? I should have had better standards. I should have had stronger boundaries. So they end up building a brick wall, and the standards are set so high that nobody can ever mess up. Nobody can ever make any mistakes. And they pretty much build a Fort Knox around themselves where they're just too afraid to let anyone in. So I'm hoping that I can show you with this that being on either extreme is not good. Okay. And it really leads to crisis. And what I mean by crisis is that when we give up aspects of ourselves in order to protect ourselves from future trauma or hurt, or we give up aspects of ourselves to please other people, we are creating a disconnection. We're disassociating from who we are because we believe that we can't be who we are and still get our needs met and still call in a healthy relationship, things like that. Does that make sense? So, um, phase three, the acceptance phase, really sheds a light on which one of these two categories the client is falling in. And by knowing which two they're falling in, that helps to give me a clearer path on how to customize and adjust the coaching sessions from that point on. I hope that makes sense. Okay, so what are the dangers of skipping the acceptance phase? Well, we've kind of touched on it a little bit already, but the dangers of this is that you have temporary fixes. Okay. If you skip over accepting where you are and making sure that you have a full 100% informed, comprehensive awareness and consciousness of what's been going on and where you're at, you will assume you're fine when you're not. And that means that you quit the healing process prematurely because you think you're good and you jump headfirst back into dating, just all sort of issues because you got this temporary fix and when there was still more work that needed to be done. All right. And that leads to superficial healing. And I've talked a little bit about this in previous phases, but I put the etymology of superficial back up here just so that we could revisit it. So when we're talking superficial, we're talking on the surface, okay, not deep seated. It means without thorough understanding. Okay. So when we haven't done the critical work that this phase requires, you can easily get the illusion that you're over a situation when really you're not. And how will you know? It's those symptoms and the consequences of that, the evidence of that is going to show back up eventually. When you are having existential crisis and identity crisis, when you see that the same patterns, toxic relationship patterns, are continuing to show up relationship after relationship after relationship, right? And so another danger with this is cognitive dissonance. Okay, so when we're looking at the word cognitive, we think cognition. We know that that has to do with our mental capacity in our brain, right? Dissonance, however, I had the etymology for that on the screen. Dissonance means disagreement, discrepancy, incongruity, or inconsistency. And it's also related to sound. So it also means to differ in sound. And the reason I bring this up as well is because if y'all remember, when I went over the etymology of healing in the recognition phase, and I did put it up here just a little bit for y'all what that etymology is like for the word heal, we can see sound, and I've highlighted it there at the top of the screen for you. We can see that when we're talking about what it means to be healed, it means to be made whole. It means to be sound. So if you are in a dissonance state of mind, that means you're not sound, right? Because the etymology shows us that dissonance means to differ in sound. This means disharmony. Okay. So that means that the way that you are mentally perceiving your reality is not aligning with the truth of your reality. In layman's terms, you're in denial about the situation. Okay. And that can cause you issues. And I want to share with you this quote by Bessel van der Kolk. He's the one that wrote The Body Keeps the Score, which is an awesome book. The quote says, as long as you keep secrets and suppress information, you are fundamentally at war with yourself. The critical issue is allowing yourself to know what you know. That takes an enormous amount of courage. Okay, so y'all, you do not want to skip the acceptance phase. This is where a lot of transformation takes place. A lot of work is done, but I am here to guide you. I'm going to hold your hand. We're going to coach through it. We're going to coach through the highs. We're going to coach through the lows. But yeah, so that's it for this particular video. I hope that this breakdown of my acceptance phase of the 5 phases of healing made sense to you. And I hope that you have a better understanding of how you benefit from working through the acceptance phase, as well as being warned of the potential consequences and adverse effects when you do skip this phase or when you are not doing this critical inner work. All right, y'all. I'm Jerica Verche. Please make sure that you like, share, subscribe to my content, subscribe to my page. Follow me on the socials. I'm most active on my Instagram. My Instagram handle is at Miss Jerry B. That is at MSJERI and then the letter B. And I will catch y'all in the next one. Bye.